discussion from the floor. Needs pretty much no introduction, a very long time activist in Aotearoa. I'd like to welcome to the stage Donna Awatere.
So I thought I'd talk to you about some campaigns that I've been in that were successful and some that were complete failure, and why. Because in embarking on this, I agree, Joe, it can't just be about this, the visits of the extremists. It has to actually be time for a change. There has to be a tipping point at which we can say, enough of racism, stop it, we're just over it. So, I'll tell you a campaign that I worked on that was such a flop, and I don't know that we've achieved it yet, but when I was 14, I worked at egg distributors in Wellesley Street, and my mother was a packer of eggs, and I was a part-time packer during my school holidays. And there were two men who packed eggs with my mother, and they earned a lot more than her. I can't remember how much it was, but it was a hell of a lot. And I was so angry because these two men, they couldn't pack to save themselves, whereas the women were really, agile with their fingers. And I couldn't understand, why did they get paid so much more? So I went to see the management and raised it, and they said, oh, they do other things, like they lift boxes. Well, the woman lifted the boxes, but it was okay. Like everyone thought it was okay, and all that happened was I was not allowed to go back there and work anymore. But fast forward to 1969, and the Equal Pay and Opportunity Bill was on the table. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic, finally. If my mother was still there, she'd get equal pay. So I went to the trouble of getting the bill and reading it, and to my surprise, it didn't actually, there was ways you could get around paying the same. You just had to redefine the job, and that's what happened. All over the country, men doing the same work as women, they were just given a name change, and things carried on. And and today, we still don't have equal pay for equal work. So, we failed. The group of us, we were called the Republicans, and Bruce Jesson, a magnificent leader, was the leader of the pro-equal pay movement in those days. And we failed to institutionalise ourselves to carry on that campaign. And women are disadvantaged because of that failure. One that I was involved in that worked was getting the Treaty of Waitangi recognised in legislation, and that was getting the Treaty of Waitangi Act passed in 1975. And that came about because in 1971, a small group of us went up to Waitangi and protested. We walked around the flagship, and we made a hell of a racket. And we got big media headlines, and one of us, our leader, Hana Tehemara, she ran towards the Governor-General, and they caught it on camera, and it just went around the world. And her comments about that the treaty is a fraud really gave a groundswell to Māoridom to get in behind, and conservative Māoridom, the Māori Women's Welfare League, and the New Zealand Maori Council really came in hard behind, and we did finally get something. I mean, the treaty hadn't done anything since about 1870, when this Judge Prendergast said that the treaty is a nullity, and so it wasn't recognised in law from about 1870 something until 1975. So it was a little thing, but it was a successful campaign because it was kind of limited. But a failure has been our inability to address issues of racism, like the way that our history is not taught in schools, the way that the treaty settlements are a fraction. I mean, I think it's 1 or 2% of the value of the land that was taken. Te Reo Māori is not taught in schools. In fact, we've gone backwards in that sense. So, in terms of the treaty, We've had little victories, but overall we have not won that battle. In terms of fighting racism, we really have done a lousy job. You know, any Māori boy is 11 times more likely to end up in prison than a Pākehā. And you know, I don't know, this was the success of the Sensible Sentencing Trust. I think we, beginning this campaign now, need to take a lesson out of successful campaigns. So what they do is, a successful campaign has a small number of people that meet regularly, usually at someone's house, and plot. They plan an action. And then they ring up everybody, or go and see them, and put that action into plan, put it into place. They do it. And then they are innovative in the way they do it. They have a bit of shock value. And there are a number of people around, like Matt McCartan, Sue Bradford, Hone Harawira, and myself, who've done a lot of them. But it actually does get attention. So what you're planning to do to disrupt the ease of this thing is a good thing. But you got to have that nucleus, have to keep going. Ngāti Matua, what happened is we just got burned out. I mean, I've been arrested 21 times. I've had 3 legs in prison. I've been in court so many times, and some of my court cases just wore me down, literally. Just one court case for the Springbok tour took a year out of my life, and I was a solo mother with 2 children. And I got suspended so many times from work. I'm, in fact, the most suspended public servant in the history of the public service. Don't cheat it, 21 suspensions. And what happened to me is I got worn out. We all did. You know, and I look at my the people that I started with, you know, who are now practicing lawyers and doctors and whatever, and you get on with your career, you get on with having family. And so the corollary, what we failed to do was to build the next generation. So that's what you've got to do. You've got to meet in people's homes. This is okay now and again, but you only needed 5 people, because that's all Ngāti Matua was. We were 5 people that met, and I was the shyest of them all, and the one who never spoke out. Like, I was an opera singer, that's who I was, and I transformed over time into, you know, I became the spokesperson, because everyone else fell out. You know, you can only take so much, the human spirit. So you gotta actually love one another. Like the people that you get, the 5 or the half a dozen of you that meet regularly, you've got to be in your home, because it's not political, it's actually very personal. This is a personal struggle, and it's a commitment. The other thing you've got to do is you've got to train your children. I have 7 children. Only 2 of them have followed me into the struggle. And they were the 2, or no, one of them, who came with me on all of it. She got arrested with me at Bastion Point, at Raglan, you know, like on the Springbok tour, and she really became very political and politicised, and she is waiting to join your group. I got another son who, you know, I neglected to train them, but fortunately he fell into Greenpeace, and through that, and good on him, he experienced some really quite radical racism from a few white people, and that kind of gave him a shock, and so it's turned him, so he's ready. The other 5, I did a terrible job, because, you know, well, I just did. We actually thought short term. We thought getting the Waitangi Tribunal was a victory. We thought having Eddie Jury as the chief judge of the Waitangi Tribunal was a victory. You know, we could all retire when all of the Motunui claim come out and the Te Reo Māori claim come out. Well, they didn't do a damn thing. So we were too short term, and we failed to build the next generation of activists. So that's my advice to you, is you've got to think long term. You can have short term victories. Like, you know, I was the one with the megaphone that directed the troops to take down that fence. And that was because the person who was meant to do it lost her nerve. Pākehā, but, you know, I don't hold it against her. No, I just grabbed the megaphone. I realised if we don't turn now, we're going to miss the only opportunity we can to get on that field. Anyhow, And that, we thought that's a victory. We're in there, you know, we shut the game down. It wasn't a victory. It's not a victory. We're going to win when a Māori boy is 11 times as likely as a Pākehā boy to go to prison. And how do we do that? We actually have to call out racists like judges. You know, because it's individual, not every judge gives, like they gave the Pākehā boy home detention for getting $89,000. And then they give, you know, me, the Māori woman, 2 years, 10 months for defrauding for $80,000. I'm not going to say I didn't do it, but nevertheless, you know, I got 2 years, 10 months. He gets home D, you know, go figure. Until we get his name, unfortunately my judge has died, but we have to actually name him, and we can do that now. I've asked the Justice Department, I said, we want the data on every judge who is sentencing more than Pākehā, we can identify them, and who arrests. And you know, every doctor that doesn't order those tests for that Māori, when they order the test for that Pākehā, who makes a decision for that Pākehā to get surgery, and that Māori not to get surgery, they're the real racists inflicting damage on Māori, but it's all quiet. I've always said, you know, Don Brash isn't the problem. What he does, his extremism normalises, socialises racism, so that the judge and the doctor feel okay, because, you know, he reinforces that subliminal message that we are animals anyway, we are subhuman beings, therefore, you know, I'm going to give this boy prison and give that Pākehā diversion. I'm not going to give this Māori the test that Māori needs to be diagnosed properly. But it's actions like this, where you can do something startling that says to the community, this is not normal. And I do believe, you know, I met Nelson Mandela when he came, and he said when he heard that we'd stop the game in Hamilton, that it, you know, his joy, and he just hugged and kissed me. Yeah. Anyway, I'd taken him the picture of me with the megaphone in my yellow jacket, you know, saying, cut down the hair, let's go. Anyway, so we gave him a little bit of joy and contributed to the downfall of racism. And you know, this meeting, and Joe, I take my hat off to you. You know, this is marvellous. You, Joe Carolyn, and it's people like Joe Carolyn that give me hope in Pākehās. There's only a few of them. Joe Carolyn, Anne Salmon. There's about half a dozen Pākehās that give me hope. But thank God for you guys, because it stops me really, you know, going to town on Pākehās. And racism is learned. Racism is learned. And I did my master's thesis in the early stages of racism, when babies, they turn about 7, so they can unlearn it. So, you know, start your campaign, and I'm going to fully support you, but recognise that you've got to be in here for the long haul, and that you're beginning a movement. You know, you're picking up something that I believe Ngā Tamatoa dropped a long time ago. So the timing is right. We're at that tipping point, and you guys are going to lead us into this non-racist future. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you to Joe.